Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena, and today we are going into the free account once again. I know there are a lot of people that are interested in at least playing on a budget and trying to get the best of the best of the best and not having to spend tons of money on bad purchases. Well, as you can see, we have the Mastery Pass, we have a free draft token, we are already up to 1,500 gems again, and that has me thinking, up until, if sources are correct, October 9th, we are going to be able to get the Historic and Explorer Anthologies, and we're going to talk about those right now. Are these worth 4,000 gems on Magic the Gathering Arena? Well, first we're going to talk about what 4,000 gems could do outside of just getting the Explorer Anthology 3 or the Historic Anthology number 7. We could do just 2 sealed events with this, which is 9 packs, which is not great, but you get a significant amount of your gems back if you are winning, so it's not too terrible. Or you could go into a premier draft 2 times and have 1,000 gems left over for probably a quick draft or something like that. So 3 drafts. The thing is, and the longer I go with this free account, the stronger I believe this. We could spend coins to go into these here drafts, which means we want to use gems for something that we could redeem for only things that cost gems. And one of those things, if you want a good conversion rate, is going to be your Historic and Explorer Anthologies. But are the cards good enough to be played? And what do you get whenever you get these? Well, you get 4 copies of all of these cards. There are a lot of them. In fact, there are 25 different cards that you get 4 copies of. And 25 times 4, for all of you math geniuses out there, is 100 cards, and many of them are rares. We have the Cyclonic Rift, we have the Deathrite Shaman, we have Voice of Resurgence, which is a mythic, we have Chord of Calling, etc., etc. Which means that we get to save on wild cards quite a bit and could be a very nice entrance into either Explorer or Historic, whichever your cup of tea is, and that is really going to depend on which cards are superior. Unearth is a fantastic card in all of its rights, but it is a common and easy to craft. We're not really interested in looking at the commons and the uncommons because even though I'm blowing through common and uncommon wild cards left and right on this account, they seem to keep coming into my collection. The rares, the mythics, that is where the bottlenecking happens in Magic the Gathering Arena, so we're going to look specifically at the rares. The first thing you're going to get is 4 copies of each of these lands. These lands are, shall we say, okay. For our collection, they're actually pretty solid because they are rare lands, first off. They are dual lands, second off, and third off, we are probably running basic lands in a lot of the decks that we want to be running, mostly because our account is so shallow. On the other hand, these lands right here, showcasing the nurturing peatland right here, is very good. You have to pay life to tap it for a black or a green, and that's the only way you could use it. But for 1 and a tap, you could sack it and draw a card. Good to get down early game in a pinch. Later game, you get to draw a card off of it. Not nearly as good as the cycling lands, but still pretty decent in and of itself. The nice thing is that these do come in untapped, whereas these sometimes usually will be coming in tapped, but you do have the opportunity to build into playing these untapped. So there is some upside to these, maybe a good early account rare mana, but you know, it has some utility. You're not going to hurt yourself with these lands all the time, but sometimes they do hurt. Whereas these, actually there is some downside to these as well. They're not as good as the shock lands that we already have, so we're going to have to take that into consideration. But on the other hand, That is 20 rare cards right off the bat that we are seeing. Right off the bat, that is great value for 4,000 gems that we gain just from drafting. Looking at some other stuff like the Abbott of Carol Keep, it is a 2/1. It has Prowess, and when it enters the battlefield, you exile the top card of your library and you may play that card. This is going to go really good in an Is It deck, an Is It Wizards deck. That is meant to just burn your opponent out as fast as possible. This card is going to do pretty well on them, but there are better replacements for that card. But if you are in a pinch and you have a tight account, this could be something that you are very interested in. The equipment. A Quarter's Shield. I'm interested in messing around with my Azorius Artifacts deck. It could be a nice sideboard piece for us. It does cost 0. We are always looking for things that cost 0 in that deck. So a little bit of upside to this. Shrapnel Blast is a good old classic, but it gets reprinted all the time, or things that are very close and similar to this. I don't see this as a reason to craft the Explorer Anthology, but overall it is a classic. It does things Magic the Gathering wants to do. Moving on, Judge's familiar, decent, could find a spot, isn't necessarily dead on spot, and etc, etc. Let's get into some more of the rares, and then we will talk about what I'm going to be doing. Xenogos, God of Revels, is pretty fantastic, especially with how powerful mono green devotion is. Maybe we get a splash of red for Xenogos. Could happen. Makes the things really, really large. As long as devotion to red and green is less than 7, it isn't a creature, but at the beginning of combat on your turn, another creature you control gains +X/+X, where X is that creature's power. So it makes a Titan of Industry a 14/14 as it swings in. And let's not even get started with Yargle, which makes Yargle a little bit ridiculous. It is a shame that it does not get Trample, but there are all kinds of cards that give your guys Trample. So overall, I'm rating this as a playable card, a card that may possibly see play, especially in a Gruul-based deck that is trying to ramp into bigger and bigger things. The World Spineworm, another classic from my youth. Nice to see him here. It's a 15/15 trample, so he has to be removed. When he is removed from the battlefield, you create 3 5/5 green worm creature tokens with trample. And whenever he is put into a graveyard from anywhere, you shuffle him back into the owner's library. It's just pretty good stuff overall. Gives you a lot of rampy. Big rampy decks want to play this, and that's got to be a lot of ramp. But the payoff is hilarious. Kind of a meme card, but also very much so could be very staple-y. Haven't seen much of it, and this has been out for a while, but I could see a world in which the World Spineworm has his day in the arena. Moving on to the Ghost Council, another mythic that you get 4 copies of. When it enters the battlefield, target opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life, and then you may exile it, and then he returns to the battlefield at the beginning of your next upkeep. It's kind of nice to kind of protect him, and then you're constantly gaining 2 life, and your opponent is constantly losing 2 life, unless they can handle him on your turn. And swinging in for 5 every turn is really strong. Maybe an Esper deck is wanting to see this. There are a couple other Flicker decks and stuff like that that might want to see this as well. A lot of opportunity for this card going forward. I don't think too many people have it because we haven't seen a lot of it in the arena. Thespian Stage. We have seen this card in the arena quite a bit. It becomes a copy of a target land, and if you target a Lotus Field, you get 2 mana that tap for 3 mana of any color that you choose, and it is just a beautiful thing for people playing especially expensive control builds. It's really nice. It's not a win condition, but it helps you cast your win condition. So overall, I give this card my stamp of approval going forward. Omnath, Locus of Rage. It is almost an insta scoop if they could get this resolved. First off, it has one of the best taglines in Magic, which is landfall. And whenever a land enters the battlefield, create a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token. And whenever this or another elemental you control dies, Omnath deals 3 damage to any target. So you're playing small creatures and stuff like that, Omnath loves to just eat you right up, and he will. He is a dangerous elemental. Fantastic for elemental decks. It makes elementals stronger, and therefore it does see play. Moving on, we have Eidolon of Blossoms, which is fine. It's not a great card, but whenever this or another enchantment enters the battlefield, you draw a card. Chord of Calling, probably not the best card anymore, but definitely still good, definitely still playable if you have 4 copies of it. Voice of Resurgence, incredibly playable whenever an opponent casts a spell during your turn, and when Voice of Resurgence dies, create a green-white elemental creature token with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control. Very nice sideboard piece against control or something of the sorts. We all know the power of the Deathrite Shaman, which you get to exile a card from the graveyard at a mana of any color, or you could pay 1 black and a tap and you exile target instance or sorcery card from a graveyard and each opponent loses 2 life. Or for 1 green and a tap, you get to exile target creature from a graveyard and you gain 2 life. So nice way to eliminate your opponent's graveyard, and you get benefits from it, either in your opponent losing life, you gaining life, or just a good old-fashioned add a mana. And for either 1 black or 1 green, this is a very cheap answer to graveyards. And it's a 1/2. To top it all off, it is a 1/2. So Orcish Bowmasters will not have its day with the Deathrite Shaman. The last card we have in here is Cyclonic Rift. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand, and then you also have that overload cost, which means that you could replace target non-land permanent to all non-land permanents to the owner's hand, which is devastating for anybody, almost anybody, especially if you're playing mono green and stuff like that. Cyclonic Rift can really ruin their day. So now we've talked about the cards in the Explorer Anthology, and to be brief, we're not going to really go over the Historic Anthology in this particular video because time is of the essence. I want to grab the Explorer Anthology, especially for a couple of cards, like the Deathrite Shaman, Xenogos, God of Rebels, which I think is very fun, and Omnath. Of course, also, we get the Thespian stage in here as well, which makes this pack really, really good, really strong for us in general. And this is the first target. If we have time, we might even come in and try to get the Historic Anthology 7. But since this account was only started a little bit over a month ago, on August 1st, 2023, and it is a free-to-play account, we don't have the economy to really try to get both. We will aim for it, but we will probably end up just settling for Explorer Anthology 3. I think this is fantastic value, and the more of these that they release, the more powerful they become. And anything played in Standard and collected in Standard also, in a way, is part of the Explorer package that we are trying to build in towards. Another reason I want to focus on the Explorer Anthology is a lot of these cards are good even in Historic, especially something like the Deathrite Shaman, as is featured in the center of your screen right now. He is played in a lot of stuff in Historic. I don't know if people are using it as a meme, but it is there, and it's not going to really embarrass you too bad to have him, right? Which is fantastic. And for the value of only 4,000 gems, it is not a bad deal at all. I am going to do this. I am going to aim towards this pack right here. And that is because not only is this very good value, it adds some diversity to our deck. And to top it all off, we get some rare dual lands that we could put into any of our decks to make them just a little bit stronger. Stay tuned for building this account out a little bit more. We are going to be able to go into a draft. Hopefully we are going to be able to get enough of the gems to get very, very, very close to Explorer Anthology 3. And as you can see, coins are still building. So within 2 or 3 more quick drafts, we can do this. Time is short to get this done, but I will do my best to make that happen. We're probably going to be live streaming that, and we're going to see what we can do to try to get these packs. I would love to do that on this brand new free-to-play account. Now, I know most people have seen this stuff already. We already see it in the arena. It has been out for a while, but these are just auto purchases in my other account. On this account, however, it is a real discussion whether or not we are going to buy these. And I will stand by the fact that with what I want to do, this is a good purchase. If you have specific decks that you're working towards and you don't see any cards in here that really kind of get you going, get you all riled up, then you don't have to get it. But for me, what I want to do is I want to build a profile of strong cards. And we have a lot of them right here. 100, in fact. Thank you for joining today. Make sure that you've liked the video and subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time in the arena. Bye.